Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Carla, and we are going to be reading some books this week, as usual. I think we should start with a little blast to the past, a little background information here. About 3 years ago, I looked at my Goodreads account and I was overwhelmed by it. I was like, I don't really track what I'm reading. I have way too many books on my want to read list. I just need to start over. So in January 2023, that's what I did. I started a new Goodreads account. And now, you know what? I should get this number right. My Goodreads want to read list has 920 books on it. It would take me like 10 years to read all these books if I didn't read anything else. That's too many. I'm never gonna get through them all. And I was thinking, like, if someone handed me $30, because Canadian books are expensive here, and was like, hey, buy a new book from your want to read list, and I started going through the list and didn't want to buy them, I should probably take them off of my list, but I'm not ready to commit to that yet. So for this video, we're going to be reading 4 books from my Goodreads want to read list, and I thought something fun to do would be to compare books that I added at the beginning versus books that I added recently. So I'm going to be reading 2 books that I added in January 2023 and 2 books that I added in April 2025, so 2.5 years later. We're going to see how my tastes have changed. We're going to see if I even want to read these books, because I am looking at the first one on my list and I don't actually know why I added it. It's the point of the video. Let's see how my tastes have changed. Also, I should mention all 4 of them are different genres, which is fun. I didn't realize that until they came in the mail, and then I was like, oh my goodness, yeah, they're all different, which is very cool. None of which is fantasy or romance, which is crazy because that's pretty much all I've been reading for like the past 6 weeks. Without further ado, we are starting with Little Boy Lost by J.D. Trafford, and I'm reading it on my Kindle because I looked online and at the bookstore and at the library and I couldn't find it in any of those places. So I'm thinking it might be a Kindle book only. I'm not sure. If I understand correctly, I think it's a legal thriller, which kind of scares me. I don't know if I've ever read a legal thriller in my entire life, so I'm a little bit nervous. But I read the synopsis and it looks like little girl goes into a lawyer's office and says, my brother is missing and no one will help. And he says he'll help her, finds evidence of like 12 black boys in a pit or something. So this is gonna be heavy. We're gonna start with Little Boy Lost, and I will come back to you with my thoughts when I have some. I've been reading in bed this morning. I'm about 30% of the way through Little Boy Lost. I'm undecided on how I feel about it. I think it's a good story. I'm enjoying the plot. It's sad, but the pacing is really good, and the chapters are like 5 minutes. So every time I was like, oh, I should stop and get up and do something now, I'm like, oh, the next chapter's only 3 minutes. I'm just gonna read it. So in that sense, the flow is really good, and I don't want to stop reading. But the writing itself is a little bit stale. Like, it's very much just short sentences, like, and then I opened the file, and then I read the file, and then this is what I've decided. The character is just kind of written as a matter-of-fact character, so it works a little bit, but it is a little bit boring writing. I can't picture anything. I'm not imagining any of it. I'm just being told as if I'm watching a documentary, kind of is how it feels, maybe. So it's not an awful thing. It's just not my favorite way to read a book. So we're following a character named, oh my goodness, how do I not know his name? His brother is Lincoln, and he is, I'll be honest, I don't remember his name. I do not know that man.
To say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous. I don't know who this man is. I mean, he could be walking down the street. I wouldn't know a thing. Sorry to this man.
Justin. His name is Justin. His grandfather is a judge, and his dad is a politician, and his brother is a politician, and he is a struggling lawyer. He's a single dad. He has a daughter. His wife passed away, I want to say like 2 or 3 years ago, and he is struggling with that, and he lost his job because of it. Like, he used to work, I guess, at a better law firm, and now he just kind of works for himself and doesn't really get a lot of clients. There's a lot of side plot going on, which is good. I think that helps with the pacing, but they just found the bodies of a dozen young black men in the forest, And that's not a spoiler. It's literally in the synopsis, I promise. The police don't really care. His father, the politician, is retiring and wants him to follow in his footsteps. So it's very much this succession in this family, and you're kind of watching how that looks. But also it's very racial, and he's like, I don't know if I can help people more on the ground or if I can help people more following in my father's footsteps, and he doesn't really know what to do. And there's like this whole relationship struggle with his brother and with his daughter and with his parents. So it is good because you're getting a lot of relational background about him and learning a lot about Justin in that way, because he doesn't tell you too much about himself, okay? He just kind of explains his day-to-day. So I'm curious if it's a mystery in the sense that we're gonna know who committed the crime. I really hope so. They're obviously shining a light on the fact that crimes like this happen to young black men and nobody really cares. It is very poignant in the way that it's going about that, of like he himself is a black lawyer and he's like, I don't know the best steps to take to give this the recognition it needs, but also solve the crime. That is the update so far.
Okay guys, I haven't read for a couple of days. I mostly was just building houses on Sims. So it's a couple of days later and I think I still have like an hour and a half left, and I am determined to finish it today. I promise. We're in the kitchen because I am following a new bread recipe for my sourdough starter, and it has me resting the dough every 10 minutes, like kneading it and then resting it for 10 minutes. So I'm just gonna read in between all of my kneading practices. Yeah, I think I'm just like kind of put off. I don't really want to read it because I'm battling with the fact that there are so many plot points and storylines that I don't really care about mixed with the mediocre writing. I'm just like, yeah, I'm not bored though. That's the thing. So I don't know what my problem is. I'm not bored. I just don't really want to keep going.
Okay, I just finished. It didn't really improve. And the plot twist about who it was, I had guessed it was this person once we met them. It was not a surprise enough. They tried to make other people seem suspicious and it didn't really work in my opinion. And I didn't really like any of Justin's family members. Like all of the parts with his brother I kind of skimmed. And they kept trying to add these little plot things about like his daughter being bullied and having to switch schools. I think I'm gonna give this 2.5 stars. I think if I was surprised by who was guilty of murdering all of these boys, I would have rated it a lot higher, maybe like a 3.5, but it was not a surprise, and that's the whole point of a thriller. We didn't get enough of the victims' families either. I wish there was more of that, and it was more about the victims than about Justin. I took a picture of one thing that I read on my Kindle because it was so funny to me. This is how he described someone talking. I think it was a witness, and he was like, his tone was clipped. His language was concise, and he sounded a little bit like a general describing a battle. And I laughed out loud, because that is the way that this entire book is written. Like, clipped, concise, not much feeling, just fact. So I thought that was really funny. I'm done this. 2.5 stars for the first book. It is like 8 o'clock almost, so I am going to right away start my next book. I think I'm just gonna read the second January 2023 edition to my TBR and then get to the new books that I'm more excited to read. We are reading Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. This is a sci-fi book, and sci-fi is always very hit or miss to me. I always either absolutely love it or want to DNF it. I don't think I have too many that are in between. Let me just remind myself what it's about. From Vancouver Island, I live by there, in 1912 to a dark colony on the moon nearly 500 years later, unfurling a story of humanity across centuries and space. So I'm not going to read the rest of the back, and that sounds really interesting. So I will let you know what I think. From Vancouver Island to space 500 years later. I wonder if it's the same person or if it's like his descendants or something. I'm not sure. I will read for a little bit in the living room because I made the vibes immaculate. I have some instrumental music playing. I have a playlist that I listen to all the time. And I started my diffuser and a candle, and I cleaned the whole house. I cleaned the stove. I cleaned the sink. Now I'm thinking, was it a way to postpone finishing the book I was just finished? Maybe. But now we're going to start the next one, and I am excited about it. Okay, I've only read the first 20 pages, but if they are anything to go by, I'm gonna love this book. It's already funny and deep and a little bit addictive. The writing is like poetic. I don't know, I've already tabbed 20 pages in
3 or 4 times. I just have to mention how adorable this is also. So we are following Edwin, who is 18, and he is leaving England and crossing Canada to go from Nova Scotia to British Columbia, where I live, which is so fun. So he's actually had a little part where he talked about the train ride and passing the prairies, and I have to read it because I have driven across the prairies. And if you have driven across some prairies, whether in Canada or the US, this will ring true to you. The prairies are initially interesting, then tedious, then unsettling. There's too much of them, that's the problem. The scale is wrong. He feels terribly overexposed. I think that's hilarious. We just learned that Edwin was essentially exiled by his father from England. He is the 3rd son of, I don't know if it was like a lord or a viscount. I'm not sure. So he's the 3rd son, so he doesn't get a title. So he is being exiled to Canada because we just got a little play-by-play of the last supper, the last dinner that he had with his family. It turned out to be the last dinner party because he was going to go to Canada a year later and then visit lots, and then his dad kicked him out because his parents grew up in India. It starts like this. What inspired Edwin to speak just then? Sometimes you don't know you're going to throw a grenade until you've already pulled the pin. Because his dad was talking about the heat and about how he can't believe people who are from India can stand it. And Edwin said, evidence suggests they feel rather more oppressed by the British than by the heat. And that's just like the start of this little tangent he goes on, being like, why do the British think that we can own everything? And then he's like, but the funny part is I'm moving to British Columbia, which is owned by Britain, but like, why? A very good start. But also like the writing is so nice. So I'm already loving this. Now I'm going to read a bit more. I made a coffee. My bread is done. I should show you guys later. It looks so good. I did take a picture. Is it worth it to show you a photo? Probably not. Am I gonna do it anyway? Look how good that looks. I have my instrumental playlist going again, and I am having a great day. Also, I love this cover. I hope I stay feeling this way. Anyway, I think that's all. I think she introduces characters so well. Like, we just met Thomas, who Edwin knew a few years ago in England, like 3 pages ago, and already I know so much about him. Edwin glances at him and sees into the future. Since Thomas was rejected by the Victoria business community, he'll spend the rest of his life railing against them. That says so much about a person in one sentence. I think the sci-fi just came in. Something kind of Outlander episode 1-ish just happened. Weird. Okay. I'm gonna keep reading. Okay, so I'm about halfway through already, I think. I'm on page 99. I just finished page 99. So I am curious how it's going to continue. Honestly, I am still loving it. We have now had 3 different parts. I'm just about to start part 4, which is in the year 2401. Interested and confused. It's kind of reminding me of the Ministry of Time, only because of the time travel and like, honestly, not much else. I actually maybe shouldn't say that, but maybe it's like the intrigue part of the time travel, because I haven't read too many books that include time travel. I didn't really love the Ministry of Time, and I am still loving this. So I do miss 1912 with Edwin, and I wonder if we're going to go back to these characters and it's all going to come full circle. But part 3 is an author, and I actually took a picture of something from the book so that I wouldn't forget. But it says, I was so confused by your book, a woman in Dallas said. There were all these strands, narratively speaking, all these characters, and I felt like I was waiting for them to connect, but they didn't. The book just ended. And that is interesting to me because I'm curious if that means that's how this is going to end. Because so far it's different strands and they're not really coming together. There is a common thread. The intrigue is there and I'm so curious what's going to happen. I don't actually have much to say because I feel like it all is very abstract but important. I think I might be finding a new favorite though. I am absolutely loving this. I am also going to say I'm glad I'm reading this now in 2025. There is also a common thread of epidemic, of pandemics, and I don't
love that, obviously, but I think I like it and can appreciate it a lot more now than I would have 2.5 years ago. I hope I'm gonna finish it today. I mean, I started it today and I'm halfway through and it's like not even 5 o'clock. So I'm just gonna keep reading. Oh yeah. I will hopefully check in with you either tonight or tomorrow morning with a finished book.
5 stars. This book was absolutely phenomenal. I finished it in one day, so that tells you 250 pages in one day on a work day, not a small feat. It was so good. I feel like I don't have too much to add. Everything I talked about still stands. The end, like the last half, is so important. I do kind of still compare it to the Ministry of Time because in this book there is the Time Institute doing kind of the same thing as the Ministry of Time in that book. But I preferred this. I way preferred this. The writing, the storytelling. And then I read a few reviews. Some people were saying that the different timelines didn't sound different enough. Like they could tell it was the same author and it sounded like the same person was talking. And I don't think I agree with that. I think you can tell it's the same author because her writing is so unique compared to other authors I've read. But I still felt like I was in someone else's perspective. And it was all third person, so it wasn't like they were saying I and me. And the twist at the end, I gasped a couple of times. I would say my one complaint is that there's one part where it's like 5 years later, and that would have been a great amount of time for a little bit more character development for a very important character. But other than that, I loved it. And I'm so glad I found a 5-star read. I feel like I haven't had a lot of 5 stars this year. There's been a few like 4, 4.5, but 5 stars. I think I might tell my dad to read it. I'm just thinking he might really like this. Also, there were a couple of reviews, now that I'm thinking about it, saying reading this book, they could tell that it was required to read her earlier books, which are, I think on here, The Glass Hotel and Station 11. I've never read anything else by this author, and I was not confused or felt like any pieces were missing. So I will go back and read them, I think. Crap. When reading something on my Goodreads TBR causes me to want to add more to my TBR, but whatever. There is potential for a favorite author here if the first book is 5 stars and the writing hooked me in the first 20 pages. It's so good, and I think it's amazing when you can write characters from multiple different timelines and multiple different personalities, and I found something relatable in each of them. That sounded bad. Like if I read a regular book, I feel like maybe I'll relate to one character, but I related to every single character in some way. I saw whether a decision they made or something they felt or something they said, I was like, wow, I have felt or said or decided that before. Love it. 5 stars. Highly recommend. Like I said, sci-fi for me is either 5 stars or DNF, and we found a good one. And I think it's still so cool, but I said to Zach from across the room yesterday, doesn't this book look really cool? And he said, is it about golf? Which now I can't unsee. The next book we are starting is A Quiet Life in the Country by T.E. Kinsey, which is a Lady Hardcastle mystery. And I looked it up and there are 12 books in this series. So if I like this, that's actually a little bit concerning. This was added to my TBR last month, I think. As far as I understand it, small town, 1908, a widowed lady and her martial arts maid are investigating a murder in her small town that she thinks the police are failing at. That's kind of the gist that I got from the synopsis. So we're gonna start this next. I'm curious how it's gonna go. There's like a diamond and a trumpet with a bocce ball, probably cricket, actually. Hi everyone. I am here with some cookies that I baked, 3 different kinds, and a latte, and my book. I read a little bit the last couple of days. I think like 30 pages-ish each day. What am I on? Page 80. I was hoping to finish this before the end of May. It is now June 1st and I am not done. I don't have much time to read today. It's already like 4:30. Zach's just taking the dogs out. We have thing after another today. I'm so busy. This is my downtime. So I'm going to keep reading until we have to go. I think I have a couple of hours now. This is the biggest downtime we have. But I thought I'd do a quick little update. First of all, it is following the maid, Flo. We are from her perspective, which I thought we were going to be in Lady Hardcastle's POV, so that's interesting already. I actually looked it up to see if this is a sequel and if there was a prequel series or something, because it keeps referencing some kind of past events in their life, and I'm kind of still in the dark 80 pages in, so I'm hoping we get a little bit more background, because it is not. This is the first book. There is no prequel. They just had this life before that was a little bit dangerous, and this is supposed to be their quiet life in the country, and now there has been a murder, and the police are not solving it very well, like I said, the synopsis says, and so Lady Hardcastle's like, Flo, we gotta figure this out. That's kind of where we're at. I'm a little bit bored. It's a little bit slow. We are still meeting characters with them and trying to figure things out, and it's kind of fun because Flo and Lady Hardcastle are friends, but when they are in public, they act like they should, like a lady and her maid, which is kind of interesting. So Flo is trying to get the stories from the other servants in other houses that they're visiting, and Lady Hardcastle is trying to talk to the upper class people who she can't really stand. So it is interesting dynamics, and I love that it's in the early 1900s. I think that's really fun, but it is a bit slow, and I am a little bit bored. I feel like this town is just a little bit bigger with a few more people than other mystery books I've read, but it is still a small town. I'm liking a lot of the characters we're meeting, and I'm actually meeting some and being like, oh, I hope it's not them. And there's some that I'm meeting and I'm like, oh, if it was 5 people, I would choose all of these. There's a lot of unlikable characters in this book. It seems like a lot of them rose from nothing or from meager beginnings and now think that they're kind of these important people who don't really give Flo a second of their time, and they're quite pompous. We're just kind of, getting the stories. It kind of feels like if you've ever played LA Noire. This is so niche maybe, but you have to like question people and try to figure out what happened and talk to them in a way that they won't get angry or be suspicious of you as a detective, and that's kind of how it feels. It feels a little bit like that video game where you're hoping that they don't make the wrong choice and that they kind of skirt around the issue.
What's the score with Remez removals? I brought a radio from there. That's all.
I'm gonna keep reading now. I'm gonna drink my coffee and eat my cookies. I can't decide what's my favorite. I made like an espresso shortbread, a pistachio almond shortbread, and then chocolate chip cookies. I think these are my favorite. I keep saving them for last. I thought these were my favorite, but now I'm not sure. Let's read a little bit.
I finally finished A Quiet Life in the Country last night. So this took me 4 days to read. That's pretty good. Did get to the point yesterday. I think I had like just over 100 pages left, and I said to Zach, I need to finish this book tonight. We can't hang out because if I start reading it one more time and don't finish it, I'm not going to want to pick it up again. I was at that point where I had to finish it. So it was like almost half the book left, and I was like, I have to just finish it. I really enjoyed the puzzles and the twists and turns and the way that they solved the crime in this book. I thought that it was enjoyable, and I loved how many characters there were, like just how many people we met. It was impossible to guess who our murderer was because there were so many people who it could have been, and there was an engagement party and all of those people were possible culprits. So that was really interesting. But I wish there were a couple more hints as to who it actually could have been, and it wasn't a very exciting reveal. I don't know what it was. I'm trying to think about what I would have preferred in this book, and I'm not sure. I didn't feel special kinship with any of our main characters except for Inspector Sunderland. He was my favorite character. I actually really liked him as a character, but anyone else not so much. And we still didn't really get anything of their history. So they kind of explain that she, I think, has been her lady's maid for like 15 years or something like that. We learned at the very end that Lady Hardcastle is only 40. I was expecting like a 60-year-old woman. That's who I was picturing this whole time, especially because of the picture on the front. Looks like a 60-year-old woman. I don't know if you can see it, but like she's only 40, which I wasn't expecting, because there was someone she met who's like, I used to know your parents, and this person's daughter is getting married, and I was thinking, how old are these people that they knew her parents and have a daughter who's described as like a young fluffy girl? I don't know, things were just explained kind of weird. I just wish I could have actually made some educated guesses about who the culprits were, because there really was nothing. But the interview portion, which is like a good portion of the second half, where they're just with the inspector interviewing all of these different people back to back, I found that pretty interesting. I really enjoyed that. There was a part where Flo actually used her martial arts finally, because it's like a big thing on the back. Florence Armstrong, her maid and confidant, is an expert in martial arts and like barely is in the book. And I was expecting like a cool martial arts connoisseur. There was kind of this introduction of characters, I think, to lead into the next books, which is okay, but I don't think I'm gonna read them. I'm giving this 3 stars because I did enjoy it. It was fun. It was entertaining. I think I was just expecting a little bit more. So 3 stars, and I will not be continuing the series. and I am excited to get into the next one because I think I saved the best for last. I love historical fiction. I used to read it all the time. Lately, not as much, but when I pick it up, I still enjoy it. So we are reading Beneath the Scarlet Sky by Mark Sullivan. I think I added this to my TBR in May. It might have been April, but whenever I saw that Haley read it and she loved it. So that's when I added it to my TBR because I like historical fiction, and you know a historical fiction book is good when people who don't normally read that genre also enjoy it. It's World War II historical fiction, which is my favorite era to read about. I believe it's based on a true story about a young man making it through the war. I think it's interesting because he's Italian. I haven't read too many World War II books based on an Italian. It's usually American, British, German. It is 8:20, so I start work in 10 minutes. So I'm not going to start reading this morning. I will start after work today. But that is the fourth and final book in this video. So I'm really looking forward to it. Hi guys. First of all, yes, I did get the urge to cut my hair yesterday and then did it myself. There's no video proof, but I think I did a pretty good job. I'm so happy with it. And I love like a short hair, half up, half down thing. Maybe I look a little bit older. I don't know if it aged me a little bit, but I don't really care. I think it's fun. And it can still all fit in a ponytail, so that's most important. Anyway, it is a few days later since I started this book. Chapter 11, page 123. I have mixed thoughts because I am enjoying the story. I love that it starts with a preface of like, this is a historical fiction, but because it's based on a real person, things were mixed together and there was a bit of dramatization, but otherwise everything is true. And that is important for me to remember as I'm reading it. And I have these thoughts and I'm like, well, this actually happened. Like you're like empathizing with these characters and then you're like, oh my goodness, these are real people who this actually happened to. And World War II obviously actually happened and awful atrocities happened. And the author met Pino, who this story is about, which tells you it wasn't that long ago. And then you remember it's kind of happening in the world right now and it's awful. And I have very mixed emotions because of the timing that I'm reading this. So that's my first thing. Like, it's just kind of heavy always. In saying that, I think that the pacing of the story itself is a little bit too slow for my liking. We are spending a lot of time right now on Pino climbing the Alps and getting people out, which is great, but it's like chapters and chapters of him doing the same thing. And I think you can describe time passing in a better way than making us read it over for, I don't know. I think I feel so close to the story and to the characters, but the writing is kind of turning me off just a little bit. So I'm going to try to read as much as I can this weekend and just like finish the book because I think it's one of those books that I will enjoy more if I read it in less days. I think if I make it carry out too long, I won't get the same impact from it. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I'm not trying to read it to get it over with like I do with some books. I'm trying to read it to feel the full impact of it. That being said, I think that the characters are introduced super well at the beginning of this book. I'm not sure who's going to remain in the story because we meet a lot of people right off the bat. Pino and his brother and his parents and his friends. And the characterization and just like understanding who they are to the depths of them is done so well with like these little nuances that they have and how Pino reacts to these people. The initial few chapters, I thought that I would binge this book, to be honest. So I'm kind of surprised at the juxtaposition of, is that the right word? Of how I feel about this book. That it started off really strong and now it's getting a little bit weaker, writing-wise, not story-wise. The story is amazing and real. Pino seems like a great person and you could tell the way that it's written. I think that when the author met him and got his story, Pino himself just thinks maybe he's a regular guy and did what he had to do, but I don't think a lot of people at 18 years old would have done half the things that he did. He's working with a priest, Father Ray, and the fact that Father Ray trusted him so fast to help Jews get out of Italy, because he's in Italy, tells you his character as well, that like this man knew that this 18-year-old boy could be trusted is also like a testament to his character completely. So those are my initial thoughts. It is a bit of a hybrid Friday for me. I don't have a lot of work to do today, so I am going to try to read as much as I can. I'm going to start with work and do as much as I can do for the beginning of the day, and then maybe like after lunch I will do quite a bit of reading, I think. I finished Beneath the Scarlet Sky a couple of days ago already. I was pretty much bedridden all day Saturday, so I finished it right then, and I haven't thought about it since. I think everything I said at my... when did I last check in? Honestly, I don't think I was that far. Like a fifth of the way, maybe? I think everything still stands the way I said it before. I feel like this is an amazing story, and it is riveting in itself, in all of the things that happen, and in the life this guy lived is phenomenal. I think my problem with this book is that it reads as a historical fiction about a real person and a real story, and I think that more becomes dramatized. That's not the word. Dramatized? 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 That's the word. I think that more becomes dramatized the farther you go, and you're like, he wouldn't have been able to experience all of these things, obviously. And there's not actually really a distinct plot. I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was actually a memoir, because it's almost written like one. And I think that if enough of these things actually happened in his life, it was interesting enough to be written as a memoir. I actually think my favorite part of this book was the end. He calls it aftermath instead of epilogue, and it is written as very factual what happened to every character in this book that we met. I loved hearing who was true, who was a real life person. I think my favorite character is Father Ray, who is in the Alps with Pinot and kind of teaches him and trusts him. He was an amazing character, and I actually Googled a few of these people afterwards just to learn more about them. I actually also Googled them throughout, because the nice thing about people being real people is that you can put a face to a name because they were real people. That was really cool. It was interesting after the first part of the Alps and Pinot in the Alps and helping people escape to Switzerland, he becomes more of an undercover spy position. So he never actually sees the direct impact of these things that he's doing and this information that he's getting. And so he wonders if he's doing enough, because before he was actively multiple times a week bringing people over the Alps to escape, and he like felt that and saw it and knew exactly what he was doing to help. If even 50% of the information that he gave is true, he did a lot to help. There's probably so many people like that, right? You wonder who you're not hearing about that helped secretively win the war. In the end, I didn't hate this book. I feel like I always talk about the negative things. I liked this book. I didn't love this book, and I think I went in with higher expectations than I should have, and so I'm giving it 3 stars. And I actually read one review that I totally agree with, where someone said some of the really boring parts were drawn out and they just kind of kept going, and then some really big things that seemed very important just like happened in the blink of an eye, and then they moved past them. And that really bothered me, and I feel like that kind of sums it up. I just would have told this story in a much different way, and it's great. I would not recommend this book, but maybe to people who have the same book ratings as I do, maybe let it pass and just look up the story of this guy, because it didn't have to be 500 pages. And if it was still going to be 500 pages, it should have been different things that were told, I think. I don't know. So this is a 3 stars, and that's so sad. But I got 1 5-star book out of this video, and that makes me happy. I think, am I too critical? Whatever. I like reading books that I like, and that's okay, right? Yeah, maybe I need to go back to a fantasy or a romance for a little bit just to get something better. But I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you come back next week for another vlog, and I will see you then.